Yeah. So what's it like having been that kid and now being 23 and being a coach where you're coaching some of those kids and looking back on who you were as a kid? Or what would you maybe say to parents who are raising that kid right now?
I mean, I think that's a pretty good question. I don't know if I have the perfect answer, but I don't know if I ever really stopped being that kid. I think the difference is that I've learned that once you kind of find your stride as that kid, it really isn't too bad because you get to know who you are, you're unique, you get to really own that and, live into it. And it ends up being my advantage for sure. Like I definitely was not just an average, moderately well-behaved kid. And now that is definitely true and helps me find my differences. And those differences are what make me unique and in tune with what makes me special. So if I was going to give one piece of advice to parents, I'd probably say, and this might not be that helpful, but it'd be to find constructive ways to help your kid embrace their true and unique self and to hone in on those wonderfully challenging traits. Because at least for me, that same creativity that I used to definitely piss off my mom and get in trouble at school, I would say now is the most important trait and what helps me be a leader and a problem solver in much more constructive ways. I definitely had a number of years where it was used for menacing and very bad behavior that I probably shouldn't say. But I would say nowadays, with being a coach and working with just amazing young individuals, I see it come up probably once a session, maybe every other session. But whether it's them trying to find out who they are or relate to them somehow, it makes it so easy. So giving them a chance to lean into those, not to suppress them, and understand that that might be a bumpy process, but they're going to love it and they're going to end up loving you for it. Because now I love my mama. She has been through so much, and I don't think I'd be who I am without her.
Thank you for that. And that leaves me with one question and one comment. The question was, what is it that made it so fun to try to piss me off or get in trouble? Like, what was that piece?
Luckily, we're at the point now where I think I have full immunity for all of it. But I think the challenge of just beating the system or trying to beat the system or be the rascal was that really fun thrill. And I think that it was really the only place I could use my creativity because I wasn't in school. It wasn't to try and problem solve how to make a cool science fair project. My experiments were how to blow things up as much as I could, how to, maybe or maybe not take things that I shouldn't have taken and do all that. And so I think it was just the thrill of using those, we'll call them gifts of mine, that I just wanted to embrace one way or another. And granted, that wasn't always done the best way, but I think it was for the thrill and just to feel like I was getting to use the gifts that I was given in this life. So I'm sorry for trying to use those gifts, but I'm also not sorry because we're here now and I don't know if we'd change too much.
No, we've talked before about, even though those were some hard times, that if we had a do-over, would we do them over if we also had to give up the gifts that we learned from those times? And we both were like, no.
Yeah, this wouldn't be worth it.
And when you were growing up, I was so conscious of trying to, excuse me, trying to channel you enough to be successful in school without squashing your spirit, because you definitely had spirit and spunk and a spark that didn't fit into the system, that didn't make it easy for learning at school. But there was something special about that in the big picture, I didn't want to squash. Sometimes in the little pictures, when I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, maybe I did, but I really didn't want to squash it. So
yeah, I think that's very true. And as much as I want, those traits and those gifts to be encouraged, we still do have to, get through school and get our grades and, at least hit those check marks that society needs us to do. And so although it's nice to be supported in ways outside of school, there definitely needs to be that support and consistency. And I think that's why leaning into experts and professionals in the field to find those skills is very helpful, especially even to you. I think that you were leaning on people all the time to find what you needed to do with me, because when you're in it and you are down in the dirt with your rascal kid, you definitely need some outsider input. So I think you are doing just fine and did just fine.
I did my part to support the mental health professionals in the area, in the area of parenting teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
And now I hope I can pay it forward. And just briefly before we wrap up, I think it's fascinating that now you, who were such a rascally kid, one, you've graduated, congratulations, summa cum laude, from college with a bachelor's degree. And there were times we weren't sure if you were going to make it through high school. So congratulations, my sweet boy.
You as well. I did not always think that day was going to come, let alone be a top honor student by any means.
No. So there's hope for those parents and those kids who can't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
And then you have decided to, so why don't you just say super briefly what you do for work and what in the world brought you to this point of doing this work?
Well, that is the question that I think, my whole life has led me to. So trying to keep it brief is a bit challenging when I try and think that through. But what has got me to being a student coach nowadays, which is what I do with a company called Southwestern Student Coaching. And just a little background on that is what we do is we work with kids anywhere from the ages of 10 up to 22, 23-ish. We have some older young adults. And we work on just bringing vision and purpose and trying to hone in on those unique special traits that give us all those wonderful skills. And so to get there, I think requires a bit of insight into struggling through some of those challenges and figuring out how to navigate that journey. And although I had the most lovely and supportive mother, some of those days I still just felt a bit alone in that walk, because a mom can carry a lot of weight, but not all of it. And so I've just felt such a desire to maybe bring some of that guidance and help some kids avoid those missteps where they have to fall and get hurt and struggle through it. I'd love to be able to help them avoid that pain and get to a little bit easier journey than what I had. And I think whether it's being a therapist or a student coach, end of the day, it's just to try and help people live the best lives they can. And to do that, I went to go to school to get my master's in adolescent counseling, because I feel that really did connect with people and get to work with some of those a little bit more challenging cases. Having that background will be super helpful. And so I love what I get to do, and I can't wait to be even more experienced in the field.
Well, you go, sweetheart, because this world needs more young men who can work with teenagers who are going through that dynamic that you were. So kudos to you. All right. Well, thank you so much for jumping on this call with me. I love you. I'm proud of you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mother. Love you too.
Bye, sweetheart.